Let me thank Congresswoman Christensen for leading this special order tonight, but also thank you for your leadership on behalf of really my constituents and on behalf of the entire country, because it's so important that yourself, as first Vice Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and Chairman Cleaver, who chairs the Congressional Black Caucus, continues to be the conscience of the Congress and to speak out and sound the alarm about the consequences of possible bad political and policy decisions. So thank you very much for what you're doing. It's so important that these issues be swept from under the rug and discussed in an open forum. And the debate and the discussion with Congressman Bobby Scott and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee was very important to have, because I think that the public who are listening to this discussion will understand the history and the background, the technical aspects about this budget that really, and this deficit reduction plan that the Speaker is bringing forward, which really does, once again, put the American people as pawns, I think, in a game that they were not responsible for playing. People cannot wait any longer. They're tired of having their futures threatened by Republican politicians playing games that put the entire nation and our economy at risk. And the Ryan budget and now this debt ceiling plan put forth by the Republicans, I tell you, what comes to mind is when you look at it and when you listen to what's in it, it's a you're on your own kind of plan. It's, for those who are wealthy and those who are beholden to special interests and hedge fund billionaires and millionaires and all of those who have benefited from the tax cuts, they'll be fine. But for those, as you mentioned earlier, who are poor or could possibly fall from middle income into the ranks of the poor, this debt ceiling plan put forth by the Republicans is morally wrong and is fiscally unsound. And so we don't want to see the majority of American people on their own once again. And so I'm glad we're here tonight discussing this. A Republican default on our debt, this would devastate the retirement savings of millions of American seniors, just devastate. And we know that Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, these government safety net programs have provided for millions of our seniors to live a decent life in their golden years and to not fall into the ranks of poverty. And now all of these programs are on the chopping block. It makes no sense. A Republican default on our debts, it would weaken our entire economy and weaken our national security. And we heard earlier that hundreds of thousands of jobs could be lost. Even more jobs would be lost. We should be about creating jobs, not putting forth measures that would take us further down the road into a recession and for some a depression. In fact, it's very simple. America must pay our bills on time, and we must do this in a way that does not devastate the safety net, our senior citizens and our children's future. Either you're on the side of the American people and want to safeguard vital human needs programs like Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security, critical children, or you're on the side of the billionaires, the bankers, financial services industry, subsidies for massive oil company profits. I mean, you're on one side or the other in this debate. The Congressional Black Caucus continues to be on the side of our nation's most vulnerable populations who in these very, very hard economic times depend on these vital safety net programs for their survival day in and day out. Meanwhile, we keep hearing claims from the other side of the aisle that only misdirect attention. America really is not broke. We're the richest and we're the strongest country in the world, and we still have the best ideas, the best workers, the best schools, and the largest economy in the world. But we won't be for long if the Republicans have their way. You know, you often wonder, for those who say that a default will not wreak havoc on the country, there are some who, I think could care less if we went into default, because if you listen to what they're saying, it doesn't really bother a lot of members here. And that to me is tragic. Some tell us that the future is bleak and that the government cannot afford to invest in a prosperous and growing America. But the truth is that raising the debt ceiling should be very simple. It should be a simple vote by all of us to allow the United States Treasury to fund all of its programs and obligations and debts of the entire federal government that are already in the law. Republicans in the House have already voted to support and pass a $9 trillion increase in the national debt. And now, again, instead of working to create jobs and help our nation rise out of this great recession and depression for many, the Republicans are really playing a high-stakes game of chicken with the safety net and with the security of every single American so that they can protect the massive, and Congressman Scott and yourself talked about this $400 billion tax cut that Congressman Scott warned us we'd have to pay for sometime soon. It came sooner rather than later, Congressman Scott, and we listened to you. And those of us who voted no, tried. We tried. But here we are with your prediction coming true. Here we're asking once again those who have been hurt, the most vulnerable, to pay once again. And that is just downright wrong. A failure to raise the debt limit would mean an immediate stop to over 40% of the entire federal government. Our soldiers would not get paid, Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid payments would be delayed, and the health and safety of every single American would be threatened, along with the health of our very fragile economy. The incredibly irresponsible position that the Republicans have taken, protecting tax breaks for the super rich, Wall Street corporations, big oil, that seems to be more important than the United States government and preventing the United States government from defaulting on our debts. And let me just remind those who want to cut Medicare and dismantle Medicare, that's basically what they want to do. The Medicare recipients did not create the national debt. And that is unconscionable to even talk about balancing the budget or paying down the debt on the backs of our most vulnerable populations, including those who are facing living in poverty. And let me remind our Republican colleagues again that the Congressional Black Caucus, under the leadership of Chairman Cleaver, Congresswoman Christensen, Congressman Bobby Scott, already offered a budget, and he mentioned it earlier, that would have saved $5.7 trillion from the deficit, protected our most vulnerable communities, and would have ensured the stability of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and our budget was balanced. So the country's not broke. We know how we got here. 2 wars, these massive tax cuts for the very wealthy, Wall Street going amok. And so, it's time to be real, and it's time to be truthful, it's time to be honest, and it's time to make sure that the decisions we make here will not dig us deeper into the hole. America really doesn't have any more time for these Republican games. Let me also conclude by talking about those who are unemployed, because if we don't do something quickly, the ranks of the unemployed are going to grow even greater. Here we have, and unemployment compensation is really survival funds, survival compensation, until we figure out how we're going to create jobs. And incidentally, the Republicans haven't put forth any job plan since they've been in power. But these long-term unemployed Americans who have run out of their unemployment compensation, known as the 99ers, they continue to face uncertainty and hardships, and the House must act now to stand with these. H.R. 589, which my colleague Congressman Scott and I introduced earlier this year, Congresswoman Christensen and many members of the Congressional Black Caucus are co-sponsors. This would add 14 weeks of unemployment emergency compensation and would make these benefits retroactively available to people who have exhausted all of their benefits and are still unemployed. Extending these benefits for long-term unemployed individuals will stimulate our economy, empower more consumers, and create more jobs. So this extension should be in any deficit reduction plan, because we know that not only is it the right thing to do, the morally correct thing to do, this is the economically prudent thing to do in terms of passing emergency extension. It really should be the first step in taking bold steps to create millions of jobs for Americans. And so we should be working to pass a jobs bill that would help people find this pathway out of poverty, We should help keep middle income individuals from falling into poverty. We should be looking at a budget and a plan that, yes, will help pay down our debt. Yes, it is part of deficit reduction that incorporates deficit reduction as part of it, but no, that does not cut Medicare, Social Security, or Medicaid. And we should really be trying to figure out a way to create some jobs for people. I mean, that's bottom line. That's what we need to know. And so thank you again, Congresswoman Christensen, for calling the special order today. We should make sure that the world knows that the Congressional Black Caucus continues to call to the attention the games that Republicans are playing that will threaten our national security interests as well as our economic interests, and the fact that we're here working to try to create some jobs and to help ensure that this debt ceiling is raised. That's the bottom line. Thank you again.